Once upon a time, in a small town, there was a dog living in a loving home. His name was Cris. Cris was energetic and playful, but sometimes he was so mischievous that he would treat all the house items as toys and create a new adventure at every corner. His owner, Stive, was always patient with him, but sometimes these mischiefs became unbearable. One morning, Cris was up to no good again. He had knocked over a few cushions in the living room and turned the coffee table upside down. Stive, preparing to have his morning coffee, was stunned by the scene he found. Every corner of the house was a mess. His favorite framed photograph was broken on the floor. Stive took a deep breath in frustration and shouted, "Cris," as he ushered the dog outside. Cris didn't understand these situations well. He just loved having fun. Stive looked into his eyes and said, "Enough. Your mischiefs are getting worse every day." Cris, confused, lowered his head, but Stive was determined. "You can't come back inside. Go outside. Maybe others will be able to handle you better." Stive opened the door and pushed Cris out. Cris felt cold air and the strange sounds of the street. He was a bit scared. Being alone made him uneasy. His eyes watched as Stive went inside, but in that moment, he realized that he couldn't go back home. The only person left in the house was Stive's little son, Antoni. Antoni was only 5 years old, but his heart was full of love. He loved Cris very much and always wanted to play with him, spend time together. That morning, while his mother, Stive, was tidying up the house, Antoni was playing in his room. But when he heard his mother's stern voice, his eyes filled with concern. "Mom, what happened? Why did Cris have to leave?" Antoni asked, noticing the firmness in his mother's eyes. Stive hesitated for a moment, but then she turned to her son and said, "Cris misbehaved and had to go outside. I'm sorry, but it had to be done." A hint of sadness appeared in Antoni's eyes. To him, Cris wasn't just a dog, he was his best friend. The thought of him leaving and not being around made him feel the emptiness in the house. "But Mom, he's all alone. Please, let's bring him back," Antoni cried out. Stive understood her son's emotional outburst, but sadly, there was nothing more she could do at that moment. "You know, Antoni, sometimes there are rules, and Cris' mischiefs have become too much to handle." But Antoni's heart still longed for Cris. In that moment, he decided to act not with his mother's words, but with the power of his love. "Mom, I'm going outside to find Cris. He's waiting for me," he said, running toward the door. Stive immediately tried to follow her son, but Antoni was so fast that within moments, he was alone outside. Street dogs and stray animals began to pose a threat as they roamed the streets. Antoni spotted Cris a few streets away. But the dog, feeling a little scared, was alone. Just a few meters away, a group of wild dogs were slowly approaching Cris. Antoni, in a panic, shouted, "Cris, don't come any closer. I will protect you." But the dogs quickly moved toward Cris. Without thinking, Antoni ran toward them. At that moment, Stive also came outside and quickly ran to her son, shouting, "No, Antoni, it's too dangerous." But just then, a miracle happened. Stive, terrified, was almost paralyzed with fear. But seeing her son's courage and love, she made up her mind to act immediately. Stive helped by yelling and throwing a stone to scare off the wild dogs. Within seconds, the animals retreated. Cris immediately felt relieved. Stive and Antoni carefully took the dog and walked back toward the house. Stive, praising her son, said, "I'm so glad I have such a brave child." When they got home, Antoni was smiling. Cris ran around inside, safely returning to his old spot. Stive thought to herself that maybe she could have been more patient with Cris. In that moment, she realized how much the power of love could change everything. From that day on, Stive and Antoni began training Cris more carefully. He still loved mischief, but he started learning to follow the rules. Together, the three of them created a stronger bond and continued to live happily. Cris was playing while also giving his family a sense of security. Stive and Antoni looked at Cris' mischiefs with smiles, remembering that love could overcome anything. And so, Cris the dog, baby Antoni, and mother Stive continued to have wonderful days together. Their love for each other helped them overcome all difficulties. Because sometimes friendship and love can change everything.